Well, hi, I'm Noah Bradley with Handmade House TV, and on today's episode I'd like to share with you my favorite wood treatment in order to protect wood and bring out its beauty. So stay tuned. Well, okay, the treatment that I typically use on exterior log cabins, on special applications of wood where I want to bring out its beauty, I actually make up my own formula. It's cost effective and it does a wonderful job. It's also commonly used by the National Park Service, or at least some rendition of it. And basically, in order for you to do it, all you'll need is a nice bucket. Here's an old 5-gallon bucket of mine, and a gallon of mineral spirits. Paint thinner works well. I just find this a little bit friendlier than paint thinner to work with. I get the odorless type. And a can of boiled linseed oil. Tung oil works really well. Matter of fact, tung oil was my preference for years, but to be honest, I don't know if I've ever seen much of a difference. And then some canning wax, paraffin wax. It doesn't matter the brand on any of this at all. This is the type of wax that people use for making candles, but also for creating that seal on the top of their canned fruits and vegetables that they make. And so basically, in order to create this sealer, we will pour 1 gallon of mineral spirits into our bucket, and then we'll use about half of this can of linseed oil. This is a quart. I would think that half would be best. Again, the formula, the exact proportions are not that important. It depends upon the application of wood that you want to apply it to, and trial and error is often the best thing. The situation, the problem, the reason why we use mineral spirits and not the oil directly, and that is that if we have a piece of wood that is dry, that is thirsty, that needs some form of protection, our natural inclination is that we want to oil it. Much like the skin on our bodies, we want to apply some oil that will protect it and bring out its beauty. If we apply oil directly, it tends to, first of all, cause our wood to go dark, very dark. In fact, I've actually ruined for my first experience. I had some beautiful heart pine beams, and everybody said, "Oh, you got to apply some oil to it," and I applied oil, and the oil is just too thick and gummy, and it caused the wood to go really almost black in appearance, almost as if it was creosoted, and then again the wood got tacky and sticky, and it's too thick and gummy on its own. So what it needs to be is it needs to be thinned, and also it needs to penetrate the wood, and by penetrating the wood you actually bring out almost a three-dimensional appearance in the wood. And so mineral spirits is a great solution for penetrating. It's a very porous thing, almost like water, and actually it'll make the wood rather attractive on its own, but it does nothing about protecting the wood. And so if we mix the two together, then with just a little bit of the oil, it penetrates into the wood, which is where we want it, and it applies just the right amount to not darken it too much, but it gets that oil into the cells of our wood. And this is just the added extra touch, and that is that after everything is penetrated, then we end up with a nice waxed finish for the exterior, and we can actually drop beads of water onto our wood and it'll stand up just like a fine wax job on our car. And so the proper order in order to mix this is we start out with the mineral spirits. We pour it into our bucket. We pour in about a pint, somewhere between a cup and a pint of boiled linseed oil. And then our final step will be to add the wax to it. First of all, we'll have to melt it. The secrets with melting wax is the fact that it does take time, it takes care, and there's a little bit of caution to it. Wax is a flammable mixture, So how I melt wax is that I pour it into a can that I don't want, and I place this can into a boiling pot of water, and I carefully watch it until it gets to the exact melting point. And then I will pour it in to this bucket of pre-mixed stuff and stir it around really well, and then my mixture is complete. I'll only use one stick of this wax. Generally, each time, whenever you buy a box of wax, it generally comes in 4 different hunks. And here's how it comes in here. It looks like it comes in a variety of little squares, and I'll probably use both of these, which is about 1/4 of what the box would be, maybe a little bit more. Now, what I'm going to apply my mixture to today is I recently built 4 sawhorses, and of a variety of species of wood, and I'd like to protect them. I know that outside they're going to be exposed to a lot of weather. They'll soon gray, and I'd like them to last for a long time. And also by applying a finish, if somebody were to spill, say, paint on one of them, the paint should actually bead up and come right off. Alright, so we have our pot of boiling water, and we have an empty old metal can of mine, and we have our wax. And so we're going to plop it in there and stick it in the water. And now we're going to wait for what will seem like a long time, but it is smart to be monitoring the wax. We don't want to leave this going and leave it in the other room, and that wax can be a fire hazard, and we don't want to set a fire in our house. And also, very likely we'll have to add some more water in here as it boils off. This will take a few minutes, but we do want to get to melt it. Looks like we're already seeing some melting action going on in there. I don't know if you can see that down in the bottom there or not, but that's a good sign. So I have my pliers all ready in order to carry the can while the wax is hot. And there I'm going to pour it directly into our mix, and hoping we all will go well. Now, the reason I don't boil the wax directly in the pan is it's a little bit safer being surrounded by water. I'm not worried about my pan catching on fire with the wax. We do make candles out of wax. That's the reason why, is because it's flammable. And also, this keeps my pan very clean. I don't have to worry about trying to figure out how to get the wax back out of it. All the mess is within the can. You can melt wax in a microwave. It's a little bit trickier to do. Obviously, you can't use a metal can, but supposedly that cuts down on the fire hazard aspect of it. And you can also melt wax in your oven. So there's more than one way to do this, but this is my proven way. I have also melted my wax outside on my barbecue grill before. Now when it comes time for us to pour the wax into the bucket, we obviously don't want to splash it, but we also want to make sure that the mixture that we're pouring it into, our minerals, spirits, and our tung oil or linseed oil, is at room temperature or warmer. That if we find that we're mixing this up on a very cold day at freezing or below freezing, sometimes when we pour the wax in, we'll end up with it just creating 1,000 little beads or lumps within our mixture, in which case it's ruined for anything other than fence post or barn siding. It's not something we'd want to use on our home. We want to make sure it blends in well so that the wax actually disappears when we're mixing it.
Oh, looks great.
And I typically find that one application is all that's needed. But if I were to come back years later and I would find that I would no longer sense that waxy surface on the outside of the wood, I might be tempted to go ahead and make another application. Well, okay, that about wraps it up for this week's episode of Handmade House TV. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next week here on this channel. You guys take care. Thanks now. Bye.